Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Van Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Uh-huh. So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
If you're a fan of comic books and comic book conventions, Daytona Beach Comic Con needs to be on your list of must-attend events. It's a show that actually focuses on comic books. Imagine that! This year's event is happening on Saturday, September the 6th, and Sunday, September the 7th. Silverline creators will be there, so we'll see you at the show. There's a new convention in town, and it's sure to be mega fun without the mega expense. Comics, toys, collectibles, pop culture. ShadowCon, Saturday, February 1st, 2025 in Orlando, Florida. Silverline creators will be there, so we'll see you at the show. If you find yourself in the Orlando area, and let's be honest, doesn't everyone come to Orlando for the House of Mouse? Head over to Coliseum of Comics to get your comic book fix. Be sure to check out their location on East Colonial Drive, where they carry a wide selection of independent comics, including Silverline books. Stop by and don't forget to tell them Silverline sent you. Hey, if you're an independent comic creator looking to get your comic printed, look no further than Kablam Digital Printing. They print our comics and do a fantastic job. They can even print special edition covers. When you reach out to them, be sure to tell them Silverline sent you.
Hi, this is Tim TK, host of That Silverline Show on Tuesday. Join us at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Tuesday night as we discuss pop culture and the joys of making comics.
Hi, I'm Barb Kilber, co-host of Silverline's Wednesday Wham. Join us each Wednesday nights as we discuss comics, literature, movies, and anything else that may catch our attention.
I'm Roland Mann, and I host Silverline's Silver Sunday. Join me every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern as we make mine Silverline.
Hello, 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 everyone. Pop says hello. Hey, yo.
Hey, yo.
And we've already got 13 viewers. Yay.
Hey, excellent.
My name's Barb. Yeah, bring your friends. My name's Barb Kilbert, inker of 36 plus years and creator of Divinity and CFO of Silverline. Yes, right there. And that's Martin's cover.
He's not proud of that cover.
No, not at all.
Not at all. No,
This is the very first cover ever. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Barb. That was, yeah.
No, well, you might as well take it away, Martin.
All right then. I'm the colorist for Silverline Wolf Hunter numbers 1 and 2, and it is a spectacular book. This is the nice shiny version of number 2. So, and it has beautiful colors. So yeah. Oh,
how does that
happen? What is going on there? Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, go find yourself a copy of that book. It is a wonderful book, and ask your comic shops for Silverline books. So, who are you down here, Rob, oh venerable artist?
Oh, did we go pink? We went pink up there. we're hiding from the world. No, I'm Rob Davis. I've been in the industry about as long as Barb has, 30 some odd years, moving in way too fast on 40. And as I tell people, I've drawn everything in history from Merlin all the way in the past up to Captain Kirk and crew in the far-flung future, and stuff in between. And for Silverline, I penciled and inked Twilight Grim, which came out earlier this year from Diamond, and that's it.
And
And the secret project we're working on. Want me to talk about that too? Can we talk about it now?
I don't know.
Okay,
I have no idea.
that's the clue. Okay,
That's the clue.
that's why she covered up the screen. That's the clue.
That's fantastic.
That's right. We're giving out little clues for the next movies, I take it. Yes. There's the first one.
Welcome to Wednesday. Welcome to Wednesday, Fang.
Yeah, something about me and drawing fanged creatures. I don't know. Twilight Grimm was a vampire hunter, so yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, tonight we are going to talk about properties, IPs, books, movies, TV shows, even maybe the occasional song, who knows, that you would like to see turned into a comic book.
Yes.
And I mean, at least squeeze 4 issues out so that you can make a graphic novel, maybe 60 pages,
Wow. Yeah.
So we are going to discuss that, and please feel free to jump in and give your own
ideas of what you might like to see that hasn't been to your satisfaction.
Correct.
Brought into the comic book world, because there are plenty of interesting things out there to have, but they missed the mark just by a little bit, and I'd love to see a different version of it, maybe.
Yeah,
and either take it further away from the original or bring it closer, depending on how you feel about that.
My thoughts on that were, when I was telling you guys before we came on, was that I was originally going to hype a Hardy Boy adaptation, but then I looked it up, and then it had already been done back in like 2005, something like that, but in an anime style, and they kept them as teenagers. And I said, well, I would ramp it up and go with Hardy Boy meets Michael Bay, and we need two hot hunky young men, not teenagers, but of legal age, and give them the Michael Bay treatment at Hardy Boys. In
that
comics,
that could be fun.
Yeah,
especially for the gals.
Hey. And give them lots of adventures in the comic books, and mysteries and danger and stuff like that, because it'd be all action. So I would definitely lean, and it's also in the public domain. So I mean,
what, the Hardy Boys are in the public domain?
Yes, they are.
Really?
As is Nancy Drew as well. I would about the same time period. I don't know. Have to check that. That would be another one in the same genre to bring to comic books, which may have actually been done. I didn't do any research, so I don't know. But that would be another fun one.
I have no idea who I'd pick to play the 2 leads, because I am an old fart and I'm not up on who the young hot hunks are currently.
Well, in comic books, you just draw the hunky guy you want,
Yeah, but I usually in comics I usually try to visualize it.
Yeah, you cast them. Yeah, which makes it easier for artists like me to then draw them, because I love researching and making some of the characters that I draw look like certain actors or people from real life. So that's part of my deal.
I think one of the original books was called. Hang on here, I'm taking a peek.
This week we can actually use Google.
Yes, we can. One of the original books was called The Secret of the Lost Tunnel. Now I could definitely see drawing that as a kind of a cross between Indiana Jones and the Hardy Boys.
Yeah.
So I just looked it up. Apparently the first 3 Hardy Boys are in public domain.
Well, they're in public domain, period. So as long as the first book is, you can.
Yeah, because the concept would be in
public domain now. Yeah, I mean,
so if they introduced anything new to the whole milieu after the third issue. Anything introduced into their would not be in public domain. Say they had suddenly in the third or fourth book they had a maiden aunt who was who entered the picture. She would not
use
be.
her.
She would not be public domain, but the Hardy Boys themselves would still be. So
interesting, huh?
Because the Sherlock Holmes books, they just
you're the expert on that.
recently, just until recently, you couldn't use anything published after 1924. I didn't really stop and think, but yeah, Arthur Conan Doyle wrote stuff well into the 20s. So, and if there were any concepts in those books or stories written after that date, you could not use them in any public domain fashion. In other words, you had to get permission in order to use them. So,
good
evening, Brian.
Hello. All right, so we're talking adaptations of books, TV, movies, or even songs.
Or even songs
why
that
not?
you could make into comic books and make it at least the length of a graphic novel. Get a good story out of it.
Well, for songs, maybe you could go with what's that? The Viking song by Led Zeppelin there.
Viking song?
That's one. Yeah, I know which one you're talking about. I can't think
Something
of
about the land of the rising sun.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that the immigrant song?
Immigrant song.
Immigrant song. Thank you.
How would you adapt that then?
I have no idea. I'll have to look it up. I think somebody might have.
Yeah.
What?
There is no known widely circulated Led Zeppelin comic featuring the song "Immigrant Song" as primary subject.
Then somebody could do it then.
There you go.
I could see doing, I'd have to listen to the song and get the words. But yeah, you could probably do something to it, something very Conan-esque or, something like that.
That's funny because that's my ringtone on my phone is the Viking song or the immigrant song.
Immigrant song, yeah.
Yeah, you could write a whole story around that. Make it up. The land of the rising sun, blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm. Land of the ice and snow. From the
and
midnight
snow,
sun where the hot springs blow.
Yep.
The hammer of the gods will drive our ships to new lands to fight the horde, singing and crying, Valhalla, I am coming. On we sweep with threshing oar, our only goal will be the western shore. So yeah, you can come up with.
You can do something with the Vikings, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Sounds like that's
very
what
flourish.
it's about, yeah. Or Conan-ish, yeah. Sword and sorcery.
Yeah.
You could add some sorcery to it. Yeah.
Sure.
Could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that is actually a really good idea. Yeah, I know they used it in all the Thor movies because it was like,
it fits.
It was like a done deal type thing, a gimme. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Here's one that I am really surprised they have not done a comic of. They've done a movie of it, but they've not done a comic book, and that's World War Z.
World War Z? Are you sure?
Really? Adapted to comics? That surprises me just a little bit.
Yeah, I looked. I didn't find any comics. Just lend itself automatically.
Definitely. Yeah. It wouldn't. Walking Dead came from comics to TV. It's it could go the other way.
Yep, Walking Dead started as a comic and went to TV, and I'm really surprised that World War Z has not gone to comics.
Yeah, that
would be like a natural because you could come up with endless stories in that universe.
Absolutely.
What would you like to see done?
Martin, have you come up with anything yet?
No.
Other than the immigrant song, that was actually pretty good.
Yeah, you came up with the immigrant song.
I have a favorite science fiction author that I would love to see some of his books brought into comics.
Heinlein,
absolutely.
I guessed it.
Stranger in a Strange Land, I think would make a great comic or movie. I'm surprised nobody's made a movie
Hi, Grey Wolf.
that I know of. Another one is because it was written in 1966 and was kind of set. It was very hippie-ish, or Jesus freak kind of based, and I could see that whole milieu being kind of updated and examined in today's world through the eyes of today's world. The whole idea behind it is that a mission to Mars crashed, and a young man was the only survivor, like a boy was the only survivor, and was raised by Martians and taught different skills to use. And then another mission goes to Mars and finds him and brings him back. And then he starts this whole, essentially a cult that kind of examines, and it's a way to examine today's culture through the eyes of an alien, stranger in a strange land. So I can see that being done in a comic book form, and really, you could easily do a 4 or 6 issue miniseries out of it and turn it into a graphic novel easily. But it could be, if you get a good writer to use it to examine today's culture, could be a really interesting
Could be very
read.
controversial too.
Yes.
But
And,
that's a great concept. I don't know if any of Heinlein's books have made it into comics.
Starship Troopers.
Oh, well, that's a movie.
Yeah, it's a movie, but I think it's also been done in comics, if I remember right. I'm not sure of that. Somebody out there can correct me, but I think it was also done in comic book form sometime back, not too long after the film. Yeah, he's got there's a whole bunch, almost all of his books could lend themselves to being done in comic book form. But my two favorites are Stranger in a Strange Land and The Moon is a Harsh Mistress. And The Moon is a Harsh Mistress delves into essentially AI. I mean, they didn't call it that back then, but it was a computer that on the moon that gained consciousness and helped there was kind of this more or less a fascist regime that ruled the moon and or had taken over, and a rebellion started up, and it was run essentially by this computer that had gained consciousness. It ran the whole rebellion. So you could see how that could be done today.
Oh, absolutely.
I think that could be easily done today and made into a really interesting, at least that basic concept, and then maybe change it a little for today's.
Well, yeah, to update
culture.
it because now we know what AI is capable of. It would be even more relevant today.
Right, but he kind of predicted the whole AI thing and how it became conscious. So yeah, there's another one, and there's some of them that I haven't read. I was doing a little research before, a little while before we started up here tonight, and I saw several other books of his. I went, oh, I haven't read those. I'm going to have to see if I can get a copy and read those, because the concepts in them looked really good too. But I can't. But not having read them, I can't comment on them or even say. But just what I read about them, again, just about anything he wrote could probably make for an interesting movie or comic book, either one. So there you go. Those are
interesting.
mine.
So that actually triggers a thought for me. So
Good.
Speaking of sci-fi stuff, and that would be we're going to be pushing the envelope on this one, and that would be it's called the Perelandra series by C.S. Lewis, which was a sci-fi allegorical tale, which kind of brings religion and stuff into the mix, and
Well,
and it's
doesn't
very,
so does the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
right. Yeah. So it has like really like crazy concepts in it, and that would
Hi,
that
John.
series could probably really loan itself if you got like a spectacular artist, because you could take the visuals of the story and then also combine them with the milieu of the religious and make these like really fascinating imageries out of what he's describing there, and actually visually presenting his story might make more sense of it than his books, because his books are like you have to really like read them and like think about what he's writing, because he's like explaining stuff in a
That's the kind of writer he was. Yes.
yeah. So those books, I read them when I was like maybe like 12 or 13, maybe 14, and they were probably over my head at that point. But yeah, I think those could be an interesting one. Now, the other book that could be an interesting one is also in his oeuvre, which is That Hideous Strength, which ends up it caps off with going into the basement, and there's this disembodied head that is now becoming like a god, and so it'd be kind of on the level of something like Alan Moore might write, right? So those books might be an interesting thing to adapt into comics. I don't think I've ever seen a C.S. Lewis book. I mean, the Chronicles of Narnia have been adapted into comics or a graphic novel, but I don't know if his other stuff has been
It's more obscure
ever touched.
stuff, yeah.
But
Josh,
that said, it's more dense. So
we are talking about books, novels, TV shows, or movies, or even songs that could be adapted into comic books, or stuff that's been adapted but wasn't really your cup of tea. You do it better. So if you have any ideas, if anybody has any ideas of their own, jump in.
So we've touched on a couple of sci-fi series here now, Barb. What's popping into your mind as to something that might be
The
grabbed out?
Belgariad. The Belgariad is a 5-book series written by David Eddings, and I mean it's too long for me to go into, so I'll just read you what it's about. It's about the recovery of the orb of Aldur and coming of age of Garion. This is the typical chosen one type of
hero's
storyline.
journey.
The
hero,
hero,
like Joseph Campbell.
he's an orphan farm boy, and he's accompanied by his aunt Polgara and her father Belgrath, his grandfather, who he discovers has been around for thousands of years. They're sorcerers, and this is a coming of age story. And along the way, he finds out that his job is to save the universe. That he's been
no pressure there.
Yeah, his fate has been in the works for millennia in the cosmos, and so it's very Tolkienish, where they gather up their little band of heroes and they set off
fellowship. Yes,
a fellowship. Yeah, and I love it. I've read the book like 3 or 4 times, and I just finished
I've
listening
heard
to
wonderful things about it. Yeah, I haven't actually read it myself. But
finished listening to the book on audiobook, and so because I've just I can listen and read to that one forever, and I think it's never been adapted, unlike the Lord of the Rings, and it's very Lord of the Ringish. I think it would be appeal to that strata of fans, the same fans, and I've never seen it adapted. It could be a movie. I'd love to see it adapted into a movie, but I would also love to see it adapted into comics, because it's got a lot of action and a lot of magic, which would look great in art form. So Pokemon books. I think hasn't Pokemon been
Pokemon's comics.
Sure. Yeah, I'm sure there are Pokemon comics.
But maybe they don't appeal to Josh, and he could do it better. Maybe he has a better version.
Maybe he has a better version he wants to do.
I mean, my grandson would read it, whatever you wrote. As long as it's Pokemon, he'd be all over that. Like,
is he Pokemon fan?
Oh,
very
God,
good.
yes.
Okay, fanatic.
How about, what would your opinion be? I mean, we've seen it done in the movies, but I hated the ending And if I were to adapt this, I would change the ending. How would you do the War of the Worlds? It's in the public domain. You can do whatever you wanted with it. It had a lame ending. It just kind of went.
Yeah, they just kind of.
Yep, petered
And-
out.
I don't think I've ever actually read the books, so I wouldn't even know. Never seen the movie either. So
I'm trying to think if I've actually
Okay.
read the book.
So it's an army of invading Martians,
yeah,
and they are all over the world. These big,
three-legged
yeah,
pods. Yeah.
and they're spreading toxic gas, and they're taking people.
maybe I did read this.
And there's
Yeah,
no
Jules Verne.
stopping them. It was H.G. Wells.
H.G.
I'm
Wells.
sorry.
yeah.
Yes, you're right.
And Arthur, yeah. And anyway, it's going to be the end of humanity, and all of a sudden they just die off.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out that they weren't immune to human disease. But the end of the story is just everything is reaching this, like critical, and then they just all die. And that's the end of the
So
story.
it's an anticlimactic ending. Yes. It's where the microbes win the war.
Yes, the human race doesn't rise to the occasion and win the war.
Yep. It's the
The
diseases that
microorganism.
ravage us as well. Yeah.
So
Stuff that
yeah. So
we're immune to. They succumb to. And
So
it
I
makes
have to-
sense. It makes a great deal of sense.
Yeah, but
so
it's
in the world of this stuff, people copy people all the time. So I have to wonder if also Day of the Triffids might have been a copy of the War of the Worlds, which is a very interesting.
Well, it's
similar.
It's a theme that runs through a certain era of.
So Day of the
science
Triffids could
fiction.
also be a wonderful adaptation into a comic
Yes.
if it has never been done, which is basically aliens that are walking plants that have giant tongues that come flying out of them, and
had to be better than
Poison.
the movie.
poison people.
giant tongues.
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember reading that book. It was as a kid, and in junior high. Was it in junior high when I was introduced to that? And I was morbidly freaked out by the book, but I couldn't put it down. Like you couldn't leave it, but I couldn't. You couldn't put it down, but you couldn't. You wanted to stop reading it, but you couldn't. So yeah, that was quite the book. That would probably make a decent comic.
Yeah, Day of the Triffids, absolutely, it would. I mean, any of this stuff in the public domain, you can either keep it in the time period it was written, or you could, adapt it to the current time. Since it's in the public domain, you can do whatever you want with it. All you need is the idea, and you could do an updated version of.
And change the ending where the humans defeat the Martians.
Find a way
instead of the microbes. Yeah.
Well, didn't they do that in Independence Day?
That I don't know. I hate to admit it, but I've never seen the movie, so I don't know what they do.
They figured out. Well, it was they found an analogy because one of the main characters caught a cold from his father, who was also part of the movie, and that gave him an idea about giving the aliens a computer virus.
Yeah.
But in order to do that, they had to get up there to the spaceship and
to the mothership. Yeah.
To the mothership and get close enough to a computer to inject basically the computer virus to upload it. And so they thought that everybody was doomed, and all of a sudden they came up with the idea of just taking out the entire enemy with a computer virus, which is the way it ended. We're all victorious.
So it's a twist on the ending of the War of the Worlds. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Instead of microbes,
you can do something similar to that. You could still use microbes, but have a scientist come up with one specifically targeted to the aliens. So
Right.
yeah,
What
that
does our
would be one
audience
way to do
think
it.
of this? Anybody think that War of the Worlds should be redone and updated with a different ending in comic book form? Because it's part of the public domain. You could do it. Just saying. And we touched on another one before we came on the air, Gulliver's Travels. How would you upgrade that? Would you keep it the same, or would you
Modernizing Gulliver's Travels is an interesting one. So,
would you keep it in the same time frame?
if you modernize it, no,
I would modernize it. I would modernize it if I were doing it. And like I mentioned that before we came on the air, I would probably change the gender of the person involved in the whole travel. But the whole Gulliver's Travels thing was it was an allegory on the politics of the time.
Yeah.
So you would probably want to do something similar, only using the politics of our day instead, because what people forget about Gulliver's Travels, it also involved him going and getting with the Yahoos. There was a whole tribe of people called the Yahoos that he had been adventured with.
Mhm.
And he was in everyone thinks of the one where he's the giant, he's being, they're taking thread and tying him down to the ground. Well, there's another story in which he's tiny and he's in the land of giants. So, and it's all used to make commentary on the culture and the politics of the day.
Mhm.
So
where he's tiny fascinates me, because that reminds me of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. I love that whole
yeah,
mushroom. It's raining. Get under the mushroom.
What about inner space? Did you guys know that movie? No, Inner Space.
Inner Space? No.
No.
Fantastic Voyage.
Inner Space is they got shrunk down and then they got injected into a person and they had to find their way back out.
That sounds like Fantastic Voyage.
That is Fantastic Voyage, which if I remember right was an Asimov book. It was an Asimov story.
But
Raquel Welch's debut.
So if I was to do Gulliver's Travels, I would modernize it because we now start living in the world of nanotechnology and nanobots and stuff like that. Maybe somehow either the nanobots become sentient and then take over a person, or maybe they figured out how to make themselves into nano people or something, and then I don't know. That might be something to think about as an idea, and then you could take modern politics and all that stuff and ram it into the mix.
Well, isn't his travels supposed to be taking him around the world or something? I don't remember.
Gulliver?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
He jumps on a boat and then the boat gets lost and then he ends up being
gets shipwrecked.
Gets shipwrecked and he ends and then he ends up on the shore of on the shore of the Lilliput.
Lilliputian.
The Lilliputians, and then and then
the Yahoos. And then I don't remember what the land of the giants was called.
So it's an previously unknown land.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
To Gulliver's people, anyway.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And again, it was used as an allegory to make fun of or poke fun at or examine the culture and politics of the day. So that's where we get the word Yahoo from. It's from that book. People don't realize that's where we got the word Yahoo.
I didn't at all. I think I'd like to see the Kane Chronicles adapted. It's books about again, because I have a terrible memory. It's a book about siblings, and they follows Carter and Sadie Kane as they discover their magical heritage and the existence of ancient Egyptian gods in the modern world.
Ooh,
yeah,
that could be interesting.
Yeah, and I think that would make an awesome comic book. I mean, there's so much it could be done. This is a more modern book, and it would obviously have to be optioned, but the IP is fantastic. Yes,
Uh-oh.
Martin's brain
He's
is.
looking at
Yeah,
he's looking at his
give me one
bookshelf.
second. I just gotta go. I'll go and grab my bookshelf because I think something has popped into my head here.
I can see the smoke coming out of your ears.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
I can hear the gears grinding.
What? Oh, yes. Okay. I better write this down before I forget it because otherwise I'm going to forget it. Hang on, and then I'm going to grab the book that I can use as an example, and then yeah, I've got an adaptation idea. So hang on, I'll be right back. But you guys keep talking amongst yourselves.
I
All right.
want somebody in the audience to throw out an idea. Anybody have a book that hasn't been turned into a comic?
Favorite book, yeah, that
or a movie
has not been done. Yeah, movie
that you think would make at least a graphic novel size story, if not more. I mean, obviously something like some of the stories that we've talked about could be continuous and ongoing stories because they have a huge well of stories that you could be drawn on. But we've got Pokemon from Josh, but I haven't got anything from anybody else. So anybody jump in with an idea. All right, Martin's back.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so in Canada we have this wonderful writer named Farley Mowat. I don't know if you know of him.
Mullet?
Farley Mowat.
Mowat. Oh, I thought you said
Farley
mullet.
Mowat. Yeah. So he was
M-O-E-T?
he was a guy who was up in Canada, and he did a lot of nature stuff, and he wrote a couple books called he wrote a book called The Dog That Wouldn't Be, Owls in the Family, Never Cry Wolf, which was also a movie. And so he wrote some really fantastic books. And The Dog That Wouldn't Be, I think he wrote 2 or 3 different versions of that. And Owls in the Family had two books. But they were all great stories about stuff, and they could end up looking like,
Oh wow, that's definitely Classics Illustrated there.
So this is Mike Plug, who did Huckleberry Finn, and he just did. This book is just out of this world. I don't know if my camera's going to be sharp enough to get that across.
Hang on.
Yeah, it's bringing full size to the full screen. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, that is beautiful.
So his work was just absolutely spectacular work. So, like, if you were to adapt the Farley Mowat books into this kind of a style, it would be they'd be just knockout awesome books to adapt. So yeah. So if you've never read those books, the excellent, hilarious books, they're just absolutely funny. The Dog That Wouldn't Be is about a dog that refuses to act like a dog. And they would take him driving, and because the dog refused to sit in his chair, he would always stick his head out the roof of the car. But he had allergies, so they had to stick swimming goggles on him so that he could actually drive.
So some great imagery in there.
Yeah, just awesome pictures and stuff. And then the owls in the families, they adopt 2 owls, one bigger one and one smaller one, and they have all these silly adventures that they end up doing. So you could just do some great stuff with that. So that just popped into my head as a possibility for
how about you, Rob?
Adaptations.
I mean, well, coming up with the Heinlein books was just pretty much my but yeah, because those are the kinds of things I'd like to see that as far as I know had never been adapted even into movies, some of them, but especially Stranger in a Strange Land. But I'm trying to think, there's the Shannara series. I don't know.
Yes,
I think somebody's
the
actually
Sword
done,
of Shannara.
I think somebody's done
Terry Brooks.
A little bit. His Terry Brooks, that series. There's several book series that I've read over
the Prydain Chronicles.
Thomas Covenant. I don't know if you know those by
I know what they
Donaldson, I think is the writer's name, and they're fantasy, like J.R.R. Tolkien type.
Mm-hmm. So is the Prydain Chronicles. Oh.
Yeah, the Chronicles of Thomas Covenant. That's what these are. And there were 2-3 book series on that I know of. I think there's even a third, but I don't recall purchasing that one. But that might be an interesting one to come into comics. Just those kinds of things, I think, would lend themselves well to the visual medium of comic book. The nice thing about comics is that you can, unlike in the movies, it's easier to bring some of the textural feeling that a text, a prose book has. That's easier to bring into a comic than it is into a movie without doing voiceover, and sometimes voiceover just kills it. I'm looking at Blade Runner, which there's 2 different versions of it. There's one where Harrison Ford does the voiceover, and that's the quote unquote accepted one. But there's also another version where there is no voiceover, which has a totally different feel to it. And personally, I like it better. But I'm the odd man out in that respect. But that's I can see there's several book series that have that sort of feel to them that would work better in comics than they would in a movie. So
well, also you have an unlimited CGI budget.
Absolutely. Yep.
In a comic book. How hard, I mean, you are the expert in this particular field. How hard is it to work with a public domain property?
For me, well, if it's public domain, it's actually pretty easy because you can play with it any way you want to.
Do you have to file anything anywhere?
No.
Just
you don't
start writing it.
Just start writing it, start doing it. Yeah, and as long as it's in the public domain. Now, if it's something that the copyright is still extant on it still exists, then you have to contact whoever the copyright owner is. And it isn't always the author. Sometimes the copyrights have been sold to someone else, or it's an organization that they've signed the rights over to that you have to contact and get the rights to. And many times they're going to be very specific about what you can and can't do with their property. So that's it. Fortunately, I haven't had to do any of that, but you can, anything that's in the public domain. In fact, you can take the actual stories and adapt them or reprint them as they are, or you can take elements from it and then change it and move it around. I mean, look at all the Sherlock Holmes stuff that's being done now. I understand there's a new TV show called Watson that is essentially Dr. Watson in the modern day, and it's set during the period when Sherlock Holmes is dead, and Watson is essentially kind of a detective, and that's one of the things you can do with that. There's the TV show House that was essentially an adaptation of Sherlock Holmes,
only in medical form.
In medical form, he was a doctor instead of a detective, but he was still an obnoxious jerk.
Right, right.
So,
and I think
which Holmes was. If you really read the books carefully, he was kind of a jerk.
He was very arrogant.
Very arrogant and very jerkish. So, yeah. But,
he had a very, very high opinion of himself.
Definitely. But, yeah, you can, anything that's in the public domain, you can kind of twist it and turn it in any old way you want. Now, sometimes that works well and others it doesn't. It's like that movie, the Winnie the Pooh movie. As soon as that went into public domain, the one where Pooh and all the other animals in the 100-acre wood were mad at Christopher Robin and were going to go do nasty things to him. I don't remember what the name of that movie is, and I don't want to. But that's they really kind of twisted that into an ugly shape. But in my opinion, I mean, other people may have loved it. I didn't care. Even for the concept, didn't appeal to me. So I didn't even see the movie. But you can do all sorts of things like that with the public domain.
Journey to the Center of the Earth.
Yeah, I think
Yes,
that's already been done as a comic.
it has been done. There's
But
been
the thing
a
is, it
number
has endless possibilities.
Yep,
absolutely.
it does. Yeah.
There's Edgar Rice Burroughs, the creator of Tarzan, and John
Mhm.
Carter also did a series of inner Earth stories. I believe it's pronounced Pellucidar, or
Yes.
but it's an inner Earth type of thing where you go into this volcano, or you go into this cave, and you end up curling inside the Earth, where you're inside the globe, and there's this bright object in the center that's the sun there, and there's a whole civilization and a whole different culture in the center of the Earth, in a place called Pellucidar. So he did a series of books on that as well. One of them even involved Tarzan in it. So, but yeah,
And
that could be a really interesting comic book as well, or TV series even.
And it's not like something similar hasn't shown up in comic books. I mean, The Lost
Absolutely.
Land, Khazar, was it
And
Marvel's version of
Warlord,
The Lost?
Warlord,
Yeah, Warlord.
from
Yeah.
DC, is kind of based on the same theory. So
That was one of the
yeah.
very first comic books that I got hooked on. And I know that you guys have heard
Warlord?
this before, but there's a lot of people in the chat who have not heard my story. A 14-year-old worked at Rexall's. One of my jobs was to take the comics off the spinner rack. And here's this guy with long white hair and the little goatee there, running around with a helmet and nothing else on but a skull codpiece. I mean, come on. A 14-year-old girl's wet dream. Come on. I always loved that book. Yeah. But it was you're right.
Well drawn, well written.
Well drawn, well written.
Mike Grell.
Yep.
Grell.
Yep.
One of the great geniuses of that era of comics.
But definitely that was a spin on the Lost World.
Exactly.
The Lost World theory, which is, I mean, like I said, it's been done in several different versions, not exactly being called Journey. Oh, excuse me. Journey to the Center of the Earth, but there's been like the Lost World and several other versions of it. But the reason why people keep going back to it is because there are so many good stories that you could tell.
Yeah, there's even Arthur Conan Doyle wrote a book about it with one of his lesser known characters, Professor Challenger, goes with a group into the center of the Earth.
What?
You weren't aware of this, were you?
No.
I believe it's called The Lost World is the name of the book.
I've heard of the book, The Lost World, but I didn't know what was in it.
It's Arthur Conan Doyle, and it's this character called Professor Challenger, and he mounts this expedition to, I believe it's in the Arctic, and they go and they find this entrance to this world inside the Earth. And I haven't read the book, to be honest, but I know the concept. But that's the whole deal, because when I first read I was reading through the Tarzan books and came to the one where he went into the center of the Earth, and I went, oh, that's an interesting concept, and then found out that there were other books like that, and that was one of them. I didn't end up reading it, but it was an interesting concept.
So even Skull Island from King Kong is basically a lost world,
more or less. Yeah.
Yeah,
and
hidden
it's
by fog,
hidden
or whatever.
by this misty fog around it, so you can't. Plus, if I remember the conceit, also compasses didn't work in the area. There was something about the area where it threw all the compasses off, and because there was so much mist, you couldn't use a sextant to find out where you were.
Yeah, it's like a devil's triangle.
Yeah,
sort of
exactly,
thing.
Exactly. And yeah, that's, and you wouldn't even have to deal with Kong, just deal with all the dinosaurs and stuff that were on the island. So yeah, that could make a whole series as well.
How about
Absolutely.
you, Speaking of dinosaurs, there's another Jurassic
Dinosaurs.
Park movie coming.
Like we need
Scarlett
another-
Johansson.
Like we need. That's
yeah.
right. I read about that. I saw
Mm.
that. I saw the trailer for that.
So did I. Yeah, we
Well-
went to see. Speaking of movies and stuff like that, we went to see Thunderbolts yesterday.
How
Lot of fun.
is it? Good. Good.
Mhm.
Because
Lot of-
I'm
Well,
give me
she
an
says it's
opportunity
lots of
to
fun. So
Yep.
talk my wife into going to see it because it looks kind of fun.
It is.
I am getting more and more. We're off on a tangent here now. I'm
That's
getting
okay.
more and more interested in the Fantastic Four movie from the trailers and some of the concepts I'm seeing from what it's about, and I'm going, yeah, hey, this might work.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it takes
it-
them back to the
work.
60s.
Yeah, and in an alternate universe.
Hmm.
It's obviously an alternate universe, and
Wait. Well,
it-
here's my hint to you then. Stay, if you go to see Thunderbolts, stay to the very, very end.
is there
Oh.
more than one?
Yeah, there's just a little blurby type thing in the middle, and it's a it's not much,
Yeah.
but
We all learned that you must stay to the very
Yeah.
end of every Marvel
but
movie.
there is a
You might miss
long
something.
Easter egg at the very end after the credits roll. Stay for it.
interesting.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and wisely she didn't give it away.
Well,
Mm.
I'm not going to
Yeah,
spoil you guys'
that's
fun.
that's part of the fun of the Marvel movies. I thought when they started throwing that concept in.
But
to
you
get
will
people-
notice that I mentioned it after you brought up the other subject.
Hmm. So yeah,
Fantastic Four movie. So yeah, I kind of figure it's probably some sort of tie-in.
yeah, they should
We shall-
adapt
we'll
the
have to
Fantastic
see
Four
now.
into a comic. I think that would be great. Wait, hang on.
Well,
Oh, dear.
Here's what I would like to see is going the other direction. Just for a second, is
Okay.
Challengers of the Unknown, the Kirby book at DC, which was kind of the precursor for the Fantastic Four. But I could see that as a movie or a TV show. Am I wrong? I thought somebody maybe even was talking about doing that at one point.
You're going to have to
but-
refresh my memory about the characters.
Well, they're very Fantastic Four-ish, except that they're no one gets any powers. But the whole series starts out with the fact that these four adventurers are they thwart death. They get into this situation where they could have died and they didn't. So now they've charged themselves with, since they've essentially been given a second life, they're going to use it to investigate and things around the world, weird happenings and such around the world, and risk death again by checking these things out. And a little later in the series, a woman joins them, becomes part of the team. So it's one of the early also where, as the series goes, the characters develop and grow. They're not like the Superman who was always the same. In every story, if something happened in the story, he was the same at the beginning as he was at the end. But in this, they grew. The characters actually grew.
Yeah. Superman is
So-
very static.
Well, yeah, and most comics and comic strips were like that. The characters didn't, unlike the Gasoline Alley, which is a comic strip, is about the only one I know where the characters grow old and pass away, and the younger generation comes in and they grow older. So it actually is much more realistic than most comic strips. I mean, how many years did Charles Schultz do Peanuts, and they were always still little kids?
Yep.
So they never got older. So that's
why-
normal in comics.
That's why I like Luann, because even though it's been at a snail's pace, she has grown from, like
Mhm.
5th, 6th grade. Now she's in college.
Right.
It's taken her 30 years to get there, but still, she has moved forward. And Brad's
Well, and
married. Now they're talking about having kids, you know.
your cousin Terry Beatty has done that
Mhm.
with Rex Morgan, where
Mhm.
the Rex and June, his nurse, are married. They have kids, and the kids are slowly growing older. And some of the other the tertiary characters, that one of them was the babysitter for the Morgan kids, is now in college, and this week's uh, strip is about her family. So they grow. They grow slowly, but they grow. They change,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
that's not been the norm in comics. Normally, comic strips and comic books, for that matter. So I'd like, and personally, I'd like to see. I was thinking of this the other day. And again, we're on a tangent here,
That's all right.
but that we've had the same comic book characters and stories now since the 1960s, and we keep rehashing the same stuff. And maybe it's time to clean the slate, or for somebody to come along and do something with a more modern sensibility, where the characters do, instead of staying the same, they actually do. There's a whole thought of how this should go through, and they actually change. And when they die, they die. They don't come back. Someone may take over their identity or whatever, their hero identity, and then carry that on,
I mean,
rather
Iron
than
Man doesn't become Doctor Doom?
the
I
in
still want to
another
see how they're
in
going to
another
pull that one off.
universe. Well, it's another universe, and Tony Stark is, from what I can tell from the trailer, Tony Stark is a different. It lives a different life, and there's little snippets of it through the trailer, and somehow is becomes a Doctor Doom like character, and it probably even takes on the persona of Doctor Doom, putting on armor, which is, it's Tony Stark. So I think that's how it works, and then he and the Fantastic Four make it over into the Marvel Comics universe, the main universe.
Oh.
I think that's because, if you'll
Watch the
note,
trailer. Watch the
yeah,
Easter egg at
if
the end of the
if you note
Thunderbolts.
the trailers and information on the next Avengers movie, if you'll see they do that lineup of all the names of who's going to be in it,
Mm-hmm.
and at the very end, it's Robert Downey Jr. and he kind of winks at you at the end. Some of those are fantastic. Or the Fantastic Four actors are
Mm-hmm.
also going to be in that movie. And if that's a different universe that they're in now in the 1960s, how do they get into the Avengers universe, or how do they play into that story? And I'm thinking, it's going to be interesting how they do it. But I think that's going to breathe some new life into the MCU. I'm hoping, because it needs a breath of fresh air, and maybe this will do it.
Yeah,
Fingers
Thunderbolts was
crossed.
fun. It was fun, but in one respect, they're trying to like build them up as the new Avengers, and I'm going, oh yeah. I mean, that they're a pretty B team Avengers, C team maybe.
Yeah. It's the it's like the what was it that
Certainly don't have the
yeah.
star power of Captain America, Iron Man, and Thor.
No.
When you've got Bucky,
and they're mostly former villains. I mean,
some of them, yeah.
When you stop and think about it, because the Red Guardian was essentially a response to Captain America from
He was the Russians,
from the commies, from the Russians, yeah. So
And then-
he was a quote unquote bad guy.
the female Silver Surfer
I'm
is
having a little trouble handling that particular
okay.
one.
So
but, yeah.
I actually Googled that, and there was a female Silver Surfer.
Yes.
But to use her as the main Silver Surfer in a Fantastic Four movie, I think is a big stretch.
Well, it's an alternate universe, so they can get away with stuff like that. That's why they said it in an alternate universe. I'm not a big fan of Herbie either. You know, the little robot guy.
I always hated
I've never been
things like that.
I was never a big fan of that character, so that one I'm not nuts about either. But so the first trailer they showed of the Fantastic Four, I went, oh no, this looks silly and stupid. But then I saw some of the later ones and I went, oh, okay, I get it now. I get what they're trying to do. So it's I think it's kind of starts out silly, but it turns dark before it gets done. Really dark.
I've never been a fan of, but I'm going to watch that movie because I like Pascal, but it is a bit of a stretch to have him as Reed Richards.
And still have the mustache.
I will say that the visuals of it look really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like
I think they kind of get that.
They've really
that feel
they
right.
decided to really like play up the
They're
visual
leaning
language
into
of this movie to kind of
Mhm.
like say something, which is kind of neat. So
And they do have the era, right? The 60s. It takes place in the 60s. They very much looks like the 60s and the horrible design sense that we had back then.
what? The 60s design sense was awesome. Loved it.
Child.
I thought it was great.
Oh,
What?
I lived through it.
I know, but still, like they actually
We
had
had
style.
Plastic curtains. Plastic
Yeah.
curtains.
So here's the thing though. Here's the thing. Back in the let's say everything up until the
gone off the
70s.
rails as usual.
Everything
Yeah.
up until the 70s. Everything up until the 70s. So we can even go like into the 1900s, like early 1900s. Like stuff looked like things. Like they had like a style. They had a panache. They had
Art
like
Deco.
a visual
Deco.
kind of. Yeah, but there was
I love
like,
the Art Deco stuff.
there's
I
just
really do.
like I love the 40s.
And then in
the
the
40s
in
look.
the 60s they're making plastic chairs
Yeah.
that look like bubbles, They
Sure.
looked real red. They looked
But
real
the 40s and the 50s.
Oh my god, were they
They're like
uncomfortable.
the look of stuff looked so cool, and then you hit the 80s and everything kind of goes blah, just like, and since
Dr.
then
Doom with a gun.
everything like we haven't really had a style that's kind of a thing that kind of demarcates the era, like
Yeah.
80s till now. Like,
Yeah, Henry.
I mean, we had
Doom
skinny
would
jeans,
use a
but, like,
gun,
really?
it would not be
Like-
would not shoot bullets. It would
like
it
skinny jeans on men. That was the stylistic.
Mullets, come on. All right,
But,
say
like-
Henry says, I always hated Dr. Doom with a gun since he is basically an evil Iron Man. Good point. I give you that.
Mm.
I understand the age of Dr. Doom. Since he was created in 1962, Doom would not use a gun.
No,
Well, he might use
he
a
had-
gun, but it wouldn't be a bullet shooting gun.
No, it would be a Dr.
Didn't he
Doom
have,
type of
didn't
gun.
he have the finger blasters?
Well, he had that. Yeah, he had a lot of different stuff. Well, just
Yeah.
like Iron Man. But
Yeah,
the big difference between Iron Man and Dr. Doom, and it isn't played up as much as it probably should be. He was steeped in magic as well as science. He was
right.
He was
Science
he was
and magic.
melding the two of them together.
And he
that's
talked in the
what- that-
third person.
Yeah.
Doom does not like this.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It was
Patrick
always
Stewart. Or would it be Sean Connery would make a great Dr. Doom?
Doom would not like this.
Sean Connery. Sean Connery is Doom. There you
The
go.
Roger Corman version instead.
Sorry,
right.
that just brought back visions of Sean Connery as the Jeopardy contestant on Saturday Night Live.
All right, we need to wrap this up,
So-
guys.
Did we already hit the? I was going to bring up some other adaptations that we could go into, such as war movies, like Force 10 from Navarone, and those
Ooh,
kinds of things
yeah.
could also be an interesting adaptation in the comic world. Yeah,
Ice
anything
Station
by Alistair
Zebra.
McLean. What was that?
Ice Station Zebra.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
there's a good one.
Yeah,
Great movie. Great movie.
That's
That's another one can be done in comics. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I don't know if you could adapt something like A Bridge Too Far, that as a comic. I mean, I think people would fall asleep after the third page.
The real Hogan's Heroes, not
real
the
Hogan.
funny version. That was based
Stalag
on
13.
The Great Escape, Stalag
Yeah,
13.
Stalag 13, or yeah,
The Great
it's
Escape.
Stalag. It
The
was
Great
Stalag
Escape?
17 in
17.
The Great
Yeah.
Escape. Yes.
Yeah. So so
Great
some of
movie.
those Second World War
Great
some of those Second World War movies could be pretty good for a comic adaptation, I think.
True.
So, yeah.
Okay, folks, we are going to wrap it up tonight.
Can we tell the folks what's going to be happening
Yeah,
next
go
week?
ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, so next week we will be joined with a special guest for the ultimate dad comic launch. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to be absolute. I think next week's the 14th. Yes.
It is. Yes. It is.
So, I am an absolute huge fan of one of our Silverline books. If I can find it here, let's see if I can find it, and I bring it up all the time. So if you guys have been watching for any length of time, you know exactly what book I'm talking about. There it is. There it is. Kalis. We will be talking with Kalis, with the writer himself, Brent Larson. I don't know if he has a T in his middle name or not. Brent Larson will be joining us next week, and we are going to talk about his next book that's going to be launching. Yeah,
Launching a Kickstarter for it.
I think that's what the plan is. Let me just double check on that. What were my instructions from the head honcho? What did Roland tell me? Roland.
Fearless leader.
Yes.
Leader tells us
Head honcho, head bottle washer. Head
Yes,
cooking
yes.
bottle washer.
Did he?
We all know who the head
Did
honcho
he?
is.
I'm just checking to see if he texted me directly or if. Let me see. What did he do? Yeah. No, he didn't text me directly there. Where?
Well, we'll find out by next week.
Yes. So, anyways, do join us. We're going to show off some wonderful work from these books.
Yeah, Brent used
and,
to be a regular here. He would come in halfway
yeah.
through the show and
Mhm.
visit
So,
with
like
us. And
this,
now he's
like-
going to come back and visit with us the whole show. We hope.
So, hang
especially
on.
now that
I
we're
gotta find. Oh,
But yeah, Kalis is an incredible book. Great concept.
So
Yeah.
what is going on here? So yeah, like this book just sucks you right in and like pulls you dragging. And the thing that's really cool about that book is it's actually a dense read. Like you actually get something out of it. It's not just like
No
light fluff.
No fluff in this book.
So it's a great book. Anyways, yes. So join us next week, and we're going to promote the snot out of the wonderful book. And I'm going to be more than chuffed to see new artwork and talk about where it is. And I really want to pick his brain. I want to pick his brain because I have a theory about what the book is really about, or what his anchor is, and maybe we will delve into those mysteries next week. So, yeah.
All right. As we like to
Cool.
say at the end of every one of our podcasts,
Make
mine
Silverline.
I can't.
Hi, I'm Greg Horn. Make mine Silverline. Hi, I'm Greg Horn. Make mine Silverline.